March 6, 1944. 26,000 feet over central Germany. The engine note is wrong. Captain John, Jack, Godfrey of the 4th Fighter Group hears it before he sees anything, an unfamiliar, smooth roar cutting through the thin, frozen air. Frost feathers the edges of his canopy as his P-51 Mustang slices east, deep into enemy territory, far beyond the point where fighters used to turn back. Below him, sunlight flashes off aluminum wings, dozens of them. B-17 flying fortresses. Heavy, slow, vulnerable. And for the first time in the war, they are not alone. Godfrey eases the throttle forward. The Mustang responds instantly, its nose lifting without protest. No coughing. No strain. Just power, clean, continuous power, at an altitude where earlier American fighters had begun to choke and die. "Bandits, 12 o'clock high!" crackles the radio. Dark specks appear against the pale blue Messerschmitt Bf-109s, climbing hard, trying to reach the bombers before the escorts can intervene. Godfrey rolls left, then right, feeling the aircraft answer as if it's reading his thoughts. He pushes forward. This is what the Luftwaffe never expected. This aircraft, sleek, long-legged, deadly at altitude, was never supposed to exist like this. It was born from desperation, rushed into being in a matter of months, designed not by a famous general or a decorated ace, but by a quiet civilian engineer whose name most of the world would never learn. Edgar Schmued. You don't see him here, at 26,000 feet over Germany. But every rivet around Godfrey, every curve of the laminar flow wing, every ounce of fuel tucked into the Mustang's frame, this is Schmued's war. And it began years earlier, far from gunfire. Inglewood, California. Early 1940. Edgar Schmued stands over a drafting table, sleeves rolled up, cigarette burning down unnoticed between his fingers. Outside the windows of North American aviation, the world is sliding toward catastrophe. Schmued is not American-born. He was born in Germany in 1899, raised among gliders and early aircraft, shaped by the brutal efficiency of European engineering culture. He knows what German aircraft can do, because he helped design that way of thinking. When the British Purchasing Commission approaches North American aviation in April 1940, they're desperate. The Battle of Britain is looming. Hurricanes and Spitfires are being lost faster than they can be replaced. They want more Curtiss P-40s. North American's president, Dutch, Kindleberger, hesitates and then counters with something audacious. "Give us the same contract," he says, "and we'll build you a better fighter. From scratch." The British agree on one condition. It must be fast. Very fast. And it must be ready in record time. Schmued is given the task. No ceremony. No grand announcement. Just a brutal deadline and a blank sheet of paper. He doesn't design for glory. He designs for physics. Instead of a thick, drag-heavy wing, Schmued insists on a laminar flow airfoil, a radical concept that keeps airflow smooth over most of the wing's surface, dramatically reducing drag. The fuselage is slim, tight around the engine. The radiator is placed beneath the aircraft, exploiting something few truly understand yet, the Meredith effect, where heated air exiting the radiator produces thrust instead of drag. It is elegant, efficient, ruthlessly modern. By September 1940, just 102 days after the contract is signed, the prototype XP-51 lifts off the runway. Pilots are stunned. At low altitude, it is fast. Faster than anything the Allies have in production. It handles beautifully. It has range. It looks like the future. But there is a problem. A fatal one. RAF Duxford, England. 1941. The Mustang climbs, and then begins to die. Above 15,000 feet, Its Allison V-1710 engine gasps for breath. Power drops off sharply. The aircraft that felt unstoppable near the deck becomes sluggish and vulnerable higher up, exactly where the war in Europe is being fought. For ground attack and reconnaissance, the Mustang excels. But for bomber escort? For fighting German interceptors at altitude? It is not enough. And so the Mustang is quietly sidelined, admired, respected, but misunderstood. Schmued watches this happen from across the Atlantic. The design is sound. He knows it. The airframe is right. The problem is the heart. Then, in a British hangar, someone asks a question that will change the air war. What if we put a Merlin in it? Rolls-Royce engineers test the idea almost as an experiment. The Merlin, supercharged, high-altitude optimized, is already powering Spitfires to victory. Mated to Schmued's low-drag airframe, the result is almost absurd. The Mustang doesn't just improve. It transforms. Climb rate skyrockets. High-altitude performance explodes. Speed jumps past 440 miles per hour. Range, already impressive, becomes unprecedented. When North American Aviation installs the Packard-built Merlin V1650 into the P-51B, the aircraft finally becomes what Schmued had always designed it to be. Not a short-range fighter. Not a bomber defender that turns back early. But a hunter. One that can follow the bombers all the way to Berlin, and stay. Back over Germany, Captain Godfrey tightens his grip on the stick as the Messerschmitts rush toward the bomber stream. This time, they don't have the advantage. This time, the Escort doesn't peel away. This time, the Luftwaffe is flying into a trap they helped create. And the man who designed it is still standing at a drafting table, quietly changing the course of the war. December 13, 1943. Debden Airfield, England. The morning is cold enough to crack metal. Ground crews move stiffly across the frozen concrete, breath fogging the air as they pull chocks from beneath narrow landing gear. One by one, engines come alive, deep, refined, unmistakable. The Merlin does not bark like the old Allison. It purrs. Then it growls. Lieutenant Colonel Donald Blakesley, commander of the 4th Fighter Group, stands with his hands jammed into his jacket pockets, watching the new arrivals taxi in. He's flown almost every American fighter in the war. He knows their limits by heart. The P-47 Thunderbolt is tough, but it drinks fuel like a dying man drinks water. The P-38 Lightning is fast, but temperamental, unforgiving, lethal to the untrained. This one feels different. The P-51B Mustang rolls past, canopy shimmering with frost, exhaust stacks breathing evenly. Its wings seem almost too thin, its fuselage too sleek, like something designed for a future war. Blakesley turns to one of his pilots. "If this thing does what they say," he mutters, "the war just changed." What Edgar Schmued had built was always waiting for the right engine. The Allison V1710 was reliable, rugged, but it lacked a two-stage supercharger. Above medium altitude, it simply couldn't feed enough oxygen into the cylinders. Schmued's airframe had been strangled by circumstance, not design. The Rolls-Royce Merlin changes everything. With its two-stage, two-speed supercharger, the Merlin thrives where air thins and temperatures drop. Power remains steady past 25,000 feet, exactly where German interceptors prefer to fight. Packard builds the Merlin under license in Detroit, delivering American manufacturing scale with British engineering precision. The result? The V1650-3 fits into the Mustang as if the aircraft had been designed for it all along. Because, in truth, it had been. Schmued had always designed for a future engine. He just hadn't known its name yet. January 1944. 8th Air Force Headquarters. The losses are written in red ink. Unescorted bombers flying deep into Germany have been slaughtered. Schweinfurt. Regensburg. Munster. Hundreds of aircraft lost. Thousands of airmen dead or captured. The doctrine, the bomber will always get through, has collapsed. What the 8th Air Force needs is brutally simple. An escort fighter that can fly as far as the bombers, fight at the altitude of the bombers, and still have fuel to kill the enemy. The P-51 Mustang is the first aircraft that does all three. With drop tanks slung beneath its wings, the Mustang can escort bombers from England to Berlin and back. No turning point. No handoff. No gap in protection. German radar operators begin noticing something strange. The escorts don't disappear anymore. February 20th, 1944. Operation Argument. Big week. You feel it before you understand it. Luftwaffe pilots scramble into the air expecting the old pattern. American escorts turning back at the Rhine. Bombers exposed over central Germany. Instead, Mustangs are already there. They are waiting. The P-51s do not simply defend the bombers. They roam. They hunt. They dive onto German airfields, tear into climbing interceptors, and pursue damaged fighters all the way to the deck. This is not escort duty, as the Luftwaffe understands it. This is air superiority in motion. Major George Preddy Jr., flying a Mustang from the 352nd Fighter Group, spots a formation of Focke-Wulf 190s assembling below. He pushes the nose down, Merlin screaming, speed building effortlessly. The Mustang doesn't shudder. It doesn't compress. It feels solid, confident, like it was built for this exact moment. Preddy fires. One FW-190 disintegrates. Another spirals down trailing smoke. He climbs again, still fast, still lethal. German pilots begin reporting the same thing in combat after combat. The new American fighter follows us everywhere. It climbs faster than expected. It does not run out of fuel. The psychological shift is immediate and devastating. For the first time, German fighter pilots must fight knowing escape is no longer guaranteed. Back in California, Edgar Schmued receives reports filtered through layers of bureaucracy. He reads them quietly. No speeches. No interviews. But he understands what is happening. Air wars are not won by the best pilots alone. They are won by systems, range, altitude, reliability, manufacturing scale. The Mustang is not just a better airplane. It is a solution to a problem no one else could solve. By the spring of 1944, the Luftwaffe is being forced into a battle of attrition it cannot win. Experienced pilots die faster than they can be replaced. Fuel shortages grow worse. Training hours collapse. And above it all, the Mustangs keep coming. Long-legged, patient, relentless. They escort the bombers in. They fight over the targets. And they follow the enemy home. Edgar Schmued never fires a gun. But by giving the Allies the ability to own the sky, he ensures that when the invasion comes, when soldiers storm ashore in France, German aircraft will be almost nowhere to be found. The Mustang has done its quiet work. And the war is about to feel the consequences. June 6, 1944. 5:42 hours. Over the Normandy coast. Low clouds hang like a torn ceiling over the channel. Below them, the sea is alive, gray water chopped white by thousands of hulls moving in tight formation. Landing craft, destroyers, battleships. An armada without precedent. Above it all, the Mustangs arrive. Captain James Howard, 356th Fighter Group, pushes his P-51D through broken cloud at 20,000 feet. His radio is alive with clipped voices, call signs overlapping, tension barely held in check. Bandits inbound from the east. Angels 2-0. Stay with the bombers. Howard banks left, sunlight flashing across the bubble canopy that gives him a full, unobstructed view, another quiet refinement that Schmued insisted on. For a moment, The world feels impossibly wide. Then the sky fills with movement. Dots. Shapes. Aircraft climbing hard from airfields in northern France. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs clawing for altitude, trying to reach the invasion fleet. They are too late. The Mustangs are already there. Howard dives. The Merlin's note rises into a clean, lethal scream as speed builds past 400 miles per hour. The laminar flow wing holds steady, no buffet, no warning, just acceleration. A Bf-109 flashes past his canopy. Howard squeezes the trigger. 6.50 caliber Brownings erupt, the Mustang shuddering lightly as tracers walk across the German fighter's fuselage. The 109 breaks apart midair. Howard pulls up, scanning for the next target. There are plenty. This is not a fair fight. And for once, the Americans know it. By the summer of 1944, the balance of air power over Europe has tipped irreversibly. The Luftwaffe still has aircraft. It still has brave men. But it no longer has control of altitude, of initiative, or of time. The P-51 Mustang has taken those away. What makes the Mustang so dangerous is not one single advantage, but the way its advantages stack. It is fast enough to choose when to fight. It climbs well enough to take the high ground. It turns tightly enough to survive close combat. And above all, it has the range to be everywhere the enemy needs it not to be. German pilots begin altering tactics out of desperation. Instead of mass formations, they attack in small groups. Instead of engaging escorts, they try to punch through directly to the bombers. It doesn't matter. The Mustangs respond faster than command structures can adapt. They drop tanks and fight. They conserve fuel and loiter. They sweep ahead of the bomber streams, attacking aircraft on the ground before they ever take off. Airfields become killing zones. A German pilot climbing out under fire has seconds, sometimes less, before a Mustang drops in from above. July 1944. Southern Germany. Lieutenant Franz Keller, 21 years old, barely finished with training, sits in the cockpit of his Bf-109, engine idling as he waits for clearance to take off. Fuel is scarce. Ammunition is rationed. His instructor was killed last week. The siren wails. Allied aircraft inbound. Keller pushes the throttle forward, the Messerschmitt lunging down the runway. He hasn't reached 3,000 feet when shadows sweep over the airfield. Mustangs. They are already diving. The first strafing pass rips through parked aircraft. Fuel trucks explode. Keller yanks the stick back, climbing hard, heart pounding. He never sees the Mustang behind him. This is the war Edgar Schmued's aircraft has created. A war where experience is no longer enough, where courage cannot compensate for physics. Back at North American Aviation, production lines run day and night. The P-51D, with its bubble canopy and improved visibility, rolls off the line in staggering numbers. Thousands of aircraft. Thousands of pilots trained to use them. Schmued walks the factory floor occasionally, hands clasped behind his back, observing. He corrects small things, makes notes, moves on. He does not celebrate. Engineers, like Schmued, understand something pilots often don't. Air combat is decided long before the first shot is fired. By September 1944, the Luftwaffe is broken as a fighting force. Not destroyed, but rendered ineffective. Its pilots are younger. Its fuel stocks are crippled. Its aircraft are increasingly grounded. And above Germany, the bombers fly almost unopposed. The road to Berlin is being paved from the air. The Mustang's greatest achievement is not the number of kills painted on its fuselage, but the absence of German fighters over the battlefield when the Allied armies push forward, when paratroopers drop, when tanks break out of Normandy, when bridges are seized and cities liberated. The sky belongs to the Allies now. And that ownership traces back to one civilian designer who believed efficiency could win a war faster than heroics ever could. But the Mustang story is not finished. Because as the war draws toward its end, the aircraft, and the man behind it, will leave a legacy far beyond Europe's shattered skies. April 25, 1945. Near the Elbe River, Germany. The war is collapsing inward. Columns of smoke rise from rail yards and refineries. Roads are choked with refugees, shattered vehicles, fragments of an empire in retreat. Above it all, Mustangs patrol almost lazily now, wide racetrack patterns at altitude, scanning a sky that has grown eerily empty. Major George Preddy Jr. is gone, killed months earlier by friendly fire in the chaos of low-altitude combat. Many of the men who first flew the Mustang into Germany won't see this final phase. But the aircraft they flew remains. A pair of P-51 DS banks slowly over the Elbe, sunlight glinting off invasion stripes faded by months of oil and exhaust. There are no German fighters rising to meet them. There is nothing left to contest the air. For the pilots, this silence is unsettling. They remember when every mission meant contact. When contrails at altitude signaled death coming fast. When escorts fought running battles from the French coast to Saxony. Now, the sky belongs to them completely. This is what air superiority looks like when it has been fully, brutally achieved. Back in the United States, Edgar Schmued receives news of Germany's impending surrender the same way he has received most war updates, quietly, through official channels, buried beneath production reports and engineering memoranda. There are no parades for him. There is no cockpit photo, no aces score beside his name. He is a civilian engineer. Always has been. But among pilots, among commanders, among the men who survived missions that once seemed impossible, the truth is already understood, even if it is rarely spoken aloud. Without the Mustang, the bomber war might have failed. Without long-range escort, daylight precision bombing would have remained a gamble paid for in blood. Without control of the air, Normandy would have been contested, slowed, possibly shattered. Schmued's contribution cannot be measured in victories alone. It is measured in absences. In bombers that came home instead of falling in flames. In airfields never reached by German fighters. In soldiers who landed under skies unchallenged. The P-51's influence does not end with Germany. In the Pacific, Mustangs range over Iwo Jima and Okinawa, escorting B-29 superfortresses on the longest combat missions in aviation history. They tangle with Japanese fighters, strafe airfields, and demonstrate the same brutal efficiency, range plus performance, that defined their success in Europe. And after the war, as jets begin to replace propellers, the Mustang refuses to disappear. It becomes a racer, a trainer, a symbol. Pilots remember it not as temperamental or unforgiving, but honest. It did what it promised, if you respected it. That, too, is Schmued's signature. He never designed an aircraft to make pilots feel invincible. He designed them to survive. In post-war interviews, rare, understated, Schmued deflects praise. He credits teams, processes, timing. He speaks more about airflow than about combat. But those who worked with him knew the truth. Schmued understood the enemy. He understood how German aircraft were designed, how they climbed, how they fought. He understood that wars in the air are decided not by bravery alone, but by whether a pilot arrives at the fight with options. Altitude, speed, fuel. The Mustang gave those options, and denied them to everyone else. August 1945. The war ends. Factories shut down or retool. Production lines fall silent. Thousands of Mustangs are parked wingtip to wingtip, surplus to requirements, waiting for a future no one can quite define. Edgar Schmued walks past one final row of aircraft. He runs a hand along the wing root of a P-51D, feeling the smooth metal, the subtle curve that once cut through enemy skies. He does not linger. There are other designs to work on, other problems to solve. That is who he has always been. The P-51 Mustang was not born from prophecy or legend. It was born from urgency, competence, and a refusal to accept the limitations everyone else had learned to live with. One civilian designer did not win the war alone. But by unlocking the sky, Edgar Schmued ensured that the men who fought it had a chance to come home. And in the silent air over a defeated Germany, that achievement speaks louder than any medal ever could.